Hi, and welcome to the Diablo podcast, your home for Diablo diehards, tryhards, casual, and hardcore alike. I am your host, Xanth, and you will notice my normal bevy of co-hosts are absent. And in their stead, I brought in two fine gentlemen to help me along in this conversation. First up, we got Nico Rex,
Hey, what's up, guys?
my favorite Druid content creator, and Kevin McAllister,
Hello. Thank
my
you for
second
bringing me back on.
favorite, Kevin McAllister. Um, I'm kidding. You're my first. I had to see Home Alone way too many times with my kids. Um,
That
it's a great
movie
movie.
is weird.
It's good. It's good. So the goal of today is to get together and kind of recap all the stuff that's been happening in Diablo, mainly the PTR, and then of course the gift that keeps on giving, season 4 of Diablo. Look a little ahead towards season 5 and a little bit to the expansion. So let's get in. Gentlemen, PTR dropped last week, and a lot of things changed. I'd be lying if I said I spent a lot of time on the PTR because in the middle there was the new Elden Ring DLC, so I had to beat that before I could go and do anything else. So my PTR time went down, but I did get in a little bit and enjoyed what I had. Let's talk the fun things. Quality of life.
Yeah,
There's a lot of quality of life improvements that we've all been asking for, to the point of the thing I enjoyed the most was I had so many mats for Zuru that I got sick of killing him in the same room. And that was amazing. And it's a thing that's not going to happen to me when season 5 launches, because I will never find myself with that many mats stockpiled that I get so bored, because I'll be able to run him or any boss much faster. And it was awesome and so nice that I could do 10 runs in just a few seconds, really. No loading screens in between. Uh,
yeah.
Fantastic. So that right there has me hyped for season 5. If that Now, that can't be the main season mechanic, the season of easy boss summoning. But with the amount of mats I'm stockpiling right now, I would probably be okay with it. Any quality of life changes that you're pretty stoked about, that you enjoyed playing with?
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one. Just being able to constantly summon bosses without needing to leave the dungeon, reset it, go back in. Um, I'm sure they probably even have some things that they haven't even, let us know that are going to be in season 5. I know in season 4 we got pets. That was crazy. Never expected that. So I fully expect there might be some things they're holding back. They have a new seasonal mechanic too that we don't know about yet. But yeah, I think that's probably the biggest one. Um, do you know anything off the top of your head extra in terms of quality of life?
I mean,
Oh,
so I'm in I guess, a unique position compared to you two, where I actually didn't get any PTR time in. I've been so focused on season 4, and lately with my hardcore character, so you should be very proud of me. Um,
and
that
I am, but you do have the caveat. What class is it?
it's don't need to.
No,
Why would
it
you
is
do
still
that to me?
it's still a
It
very
is
good thing.
It is barbarian. And I did go ahead and do my whirlwind build. That was actually the first time attempted that build, and I had such a blast. I got to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm skating to 100. Um, but anyway, so yeah, I know what's kind of happening with the PTR. Watching the YouTube, going on the Diablo 4 subreddit. I have the Diablo patch notes, everything pulled up right now. Um, my biggest things is exactly what you two just said. Those quality of life fixes, those end game bosses of beating Doriel, going right back and summoning him again. That Those little things make such an impact, and on paper, especially for the people who maybe aren't as I guess, hardcore as us, right, where we're playing Diablo daily, weekly, those things are huge to us. But to a casual person, they're like, oh, well, that's just a little thing, right? But once you're in the game and you understand the systems and you understand the mechanics, and then you're doing it, and you understand the ARPG style, like you want to be as efficient as possible with your time, and having these things like the beast in the ice of not having to do the whole god, right, like going all the way through the dungeon and stuff. It's like those little things are such huge wins for the people who are coming back season after season, and then for the even the new players that are now, they're seeing the hype. They're like, oh, Vessel of Hatred's come out. I'm gonna go try season of 5 because let me see what Diablo's all about. Maybe I never played a Diablo game. And now they're getting to the point where they're getting to these end game bosses, and they're like, oh, this is easy. I don't have to see loading screens. We're in 2024. Like loading screens are pretty much non-existent in a lot of AAA games anyway, right? You see
Yeah.
Spider-Man, where you go from the main menu, you're in the game. You switch between Miles Morales and Peter Parker, and you're just playing. So now it's the same kind of concept with this. You defeat the boss, go summon them again, no loading screen, you do it. Now the player is on the sticks more playing the game instead of sitting there and picking up their phone and scrolling through Twitter real quick for a couple seconds. So it's those big things that I'm honestly the most excited about for season 5.
Yeah,
No,
definitely
I
keeps players locked in, like locked in. Oh, and the greater affixes. So we now get to temper another temper for every greater affix we have on our gear
Mm-hmm.
piece. So that is another thing that I think is ultimately it's going to seem quite small, but when you get that, 2 greater affix, 3 greater affix item, and you get down to that last roll and you actually hit the thing you want, you're not going to think it's too small. So I think just having a couple more tempers is it's actually a pretty big deal because there aren't very many.
Yeah. Kevin, you hit on it a little bit, but like reducing Beast and Ice to just being a regular boss is huge. The amount of times I've chosen not to run it because of that specific thing. Or I think of like when I wanted to do a lightning druid, I needed those gloves, so I had to run him so many times, and it's super annoying. Taking the annoyance out, or going back to a zero, or like 2 loading screens every run. 2 loading screens every time you want to kill a boss
Hmm.
is annoying. And, you know, couple that with it didn't drop what you wanted, the likelihood of being like, I'm gonna put this aside, it's higher with each loading screen. So to have that done so that I can just kind of plow through it, even if I don't get the item that I was originally intending, I'm okay because it was effective. There's still a pile of loot around. And I know the amount of time that I've saved now, I could go and farm more mats or whatever it might be to make it easier. And also, hey, guess what? Those mats, easier to acquire and not as much needed. Farshan down to just 1, as opposed to having to carry 5 different body parts around.
Yes, that's huge, right?
Oh,
Like
that's another perfect example.
the
That's a
femur, the hand. It's like, all right, this is a little absurd, right? So now it's just malignant hearts. Great, thank you. This is great.
Yeah, that's a big one. And I mean, honestly, I'm right there with you. I can't even tell you how many times I've had a full stash full of bossing materials, and I'm just like, I'm just going to sell these to the vendor. I'm not even going to really engage with these bosses because it's not really worth my time. I can just go farm Helltide or do something else, and I'll probably get what I'm looking for faster anyway. So I definitely think it is a pretty massive change.
So those are the good things. Let's talk PTR downsides. So we'll go into the new mechanic in a bit, and we'll go into some of the class disparities. The PTR is a week long. Where I put it down outside of the Elden Ring DLC was I couldn't hit the ground running with what I wanted to try out. And when I know it's only a week long and I don't stream or anything like that, well, I guess like this podcast, right? But I don't stream. Nobody's watching me tinker. So the desire to push through was lessened. I wanted to try a companion druid. Couldn't really get that up and running right away. That was frustrating. If I've only got a week to test something, I'd like to test it. Nico, what was your experience with testing?
Yeah, so it's a very similar experience. Except for I'm really jealous that I didn't get to play the Elden Ring DLC. So yeah, pretty similar experience. I definitely wanted to try out multiple builds. I've been playing most of my time in hardcore and then some of it in softcore this season. I thought it was a really cool idea that they copied your characters over. However, when they did copy my characters over, unfortunately, it was before I had like a several of them actually, kind of completed to a certain degree, right? So I was basically starting off with this kind of bare bones character anyway, and then on top of that, the temperings weren't unlocked, right? It was just it was a bit of a pain point because then I have to go kind of unlock all these temperings for this character as well. And there seems to be some kind of issue with the drop rate on temperings because once you start out on the PTR, you get like maybe 4 or 5 in a row pretty quickly, and then suddenly it's like they all dry up. And if you don't get the ones that you're looking for, if you don't want to farm the bosses repeatedly and you don't get the one you're looking for, then it's like you can't really test out the build you're trying to make because temperings are a huge part of your builds, especially going into Season 5 because they've added multiple new temperings to your characters, like ultimate cooldowns on Druid, for example, crit damage, vulnerable damage, which are really important damage buckets for any class in the game. On top of that, a lot of what there was to test outside of the new mechanic was brand new unique items. And I mean, I could probably go off on a tangent on those unique items and how I feel about them, but the problem I had was just getting them, right? So one of them I really wanted to try was the Shard of, I think it was like Verithil is what it's called, which is the brand new unique items for basic attack builds. But unfortunately, my basic attack character, a Windshear Druid, was a hardcore character. So I'm already cutting down the amount of people I can trade with to basically 0 on a PTR. And then on top of that, it's like I have to go to Helltide. I have to go to the new, I have to go to the brand new Infernal Horde mechanic. But even that mechanic, it's like no loot, right? So it's not really a good mechanic. Go farm Nightmare Dungeon, stuff like that. So ultimately, I didn't even get the item that I was looking for. I tested out a few things, but not to the extent I would have liked to. So what I ended up basically doing is most of my opinion is based off of the patch notes themselves. And just by understanding how a build functions in Season 4, and just kind of understanding the the buffs that the druid's receiving, or how certain aspects are now going to function, like the shepherd's aspect, that's basically what I'm making my opinion, and not really what I actually got to test out on the PTR. So it is a bit unfortunate, like we were talking about earlier. I really hope that in the future they just unlock everything and let players really go to work on testing the brand new stuff and not going through nightmare dungeons and farming hell tides. Another big issue I had too, they nerfed the baneful heart drop rate. That's like the Blood Maiden is like your go-to for farming items, even in Season 4, right? Drops a ton of items. Sometimes you get lucky, you get a couple uniques there. Yeah, I was starved for baneful hearts. I went through the ones that I did have, and then it's like I could barely get anything off the ground in that direction. So yeah, it was a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, I've kind of, watching streams and some videos, and I see a lot of frustration around the Diablo community right now. And I was just about to touch on that same thing, the baneful hearts that I'm seeing. They've nerfed it so much where you're not going to be able to farm anymore. And even in the patch notes, it's got a certain percentage that they nerfed it, and if if you die, it kind of resets at like the 10% that you're able to get these. So that right there, it's, to me, Helltides was so good this season.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to fix what's not broken, right? Like, is that right? Is that the right
Yeah.
saying? Yeah. Yeah. So it's like
If
it was so, you want Helltides. Everyone's living in Helltides, right? I've ran multiple characters this season. The first time I've actually ran multiple characters in a season, and I've lived in Helltide. And I'm talking to my friends; they're playing Helltides. Don't touch it. It's great, right? Take that fun, that core gameplay loop in Helltides, and then disperse that to other areas, right? But when you begin to nerf these things that people are having fun, it's it's a little questionable, right? Like it doesn't really make sense. And I'm watching stream like Rob, for example, right? He's a little confused of like why, what was the point, right? And I see in the patch notes it's like, they want these things to be more rare, more valuable. And I get that from kind of like the game design perspective, but what's the negative effect to that, right? Like now we have the PTR and PTR, this is why there is a PTR, right? So the players can give this feedback right away and hoping the dev team will take this feedback and put that for season 5 so we don't have to kind of hop over these obstacles for season 5, right? And we can kind of hit the ground running. That's ideally that's what we want to hit, right? So yeah, it's those type of things are always a little confusing. I know there's always a reason why. There's always some type of balance. There's always some type of understanding from their side of why things should be nerfed or buffed. But I do hope, and they've been listening to the community for, since the beginning, especially since season 1, right? So I'm optimistic they're going to take a lot of this feedback and really apply it to season 5. And we're going to jump in and we're like, oh, all those woes that you were experiencing in the PTR, they're not going to be there anymore.
Yeah, I think and this was something we brought up on the podcast that nobody got to hear, is that Helltides, especially in season 4, they feel like they have fit where the campaign used to have to. Like the original plan with Diablo was that the campaign was what was there for 1 to 50, right? And then it opens up after. And they started to kind of veer away from it, giving us the ability to skip the campaign and not having something in place to kind of fill that original gap. And I think like the past year has been all about restructuring what has been created by the absence of the campaign and in a normal ARPG structure of repeating a campaign. Helltides have finally started to feel like the substitute for it, where you can go through the first 50 levels, and granted they did speed up leveling a lot in Helltides. It feels good, you're getting progress, and then you start to add in layers, right? Like from 1 to 50 Helltide. Then Helltide and Nightmare Dungeons from 50 to 70. Then we get into like 70 to 100. Let's still do some Helltides. We'll do some Nightmare Dungeons. We'll add in the pit, and then we'll add in the Infernal Horde, and everything starts to just kind of build, and you see that logical progression. Making Helltides worse doesn't help that progression, and then it just feels bad. So I think I'm relatively optimistic that they'll hear this kind of feedback. They'll change it because they're on to something. Um,
I
and
think, yeah, and I think the hearts can be nerfed a tad, right? Like I'm playing a rogue now, and all those hearts carry over from your other character in that same, whether it's softcore or hardcore, and I have 100 and I don't know, I'm almost at 200 of those things, right? Like, and I'm living in Helltides, and I'm still not using all those. So like, I do understand you can nerf it a little, but don't nerf it to where it becomes too rare that people who really want to farm the Helltides can't farm them anymore because of how rare they got.
Yeah, I'm definitely okay with a little bit of balancing. I think though you also have to take into account that the mind cages won't be in season 5 as well, and I feel like that's enough of a. Matter of fact, I wish they would just leave them in the game. It is
Yep,
such a awesome. There's a lot of little things they have. I mean, the treasure goblin loot sacks. What a
they were
great
great.
addition for an event. Made treasure goblins feel great. I know they're going to be, boosting up treasure goblins a little bit, but stuff like that. I remember the ancestral shrines when they had the lunar event. those were awesome. Those were phenomenal ways of kind of giving players like almost a little strategy they could make when they go into nightmare dungeons, when they hit their shrine to get the most out of the XP buff. And things like the Mind Cage, man, you get this big increase to the amount of cinders you get. You get a little bit more difficulty there as well because you're fighting higher level monsters. I don't really think they should take those things out. And I think that, even the hearts, you may have a lot of them, but I think it's good to have a lot of them. I mean, it's fun to have all these activities to do. And the open world is one of the biggest things they have going for the game, right? It's such a different experience. And I think if they take what is successful here and move it into other areas of the game that are more instance based, I think that's a big reason why, the Infernal Horde was, so lackluster, is because the rewards weren't there. The excitement wasn't there because, you weren't getting anything. So it's like Helltides, they have all that. I can't think of a single person that I've spoken to that said, I'm having a boring time in Helltides. It's like, it's fun.
Since this is a rarity on this podcast, I'm very infrequently joined by two people who are playing hardcore currently, right? As you guys are spending time in the Helltides and you're doing the Maiden, how often do you guys see people die?
I probably don't see a lot of people die because I don't see a lot of people in hardcore because that not having that death evasion elixir is a big difference, right? But what I have seen are people trying to troll you by running underneath you while they have one of the AoE attacks that she's doing. I've had that happen so many times in the early levels where somebody's trying to intentionally run underneath you. But I've seen it a couple times. It is sad, but not a whole lot. I would probably say I could probably count on two hands, maybe 5 or 6 times I've seen someone die.
Yeah, that's the same. It's what you said. It's just the lack of players, right? Like,
Yeah.
going from softcore then hardcore and then hardcore to softcore. I'm like, wow, there's such a difference of how many people are actually near that Blood Maiden. Where so many times on hardcore, I'm going up, no one's in sight. I activate all 3, no one's coming, right?
Nobody.
And then it's just me. And then you go on softcore, you activate it, and all of a sudden 3 people join, right? So, yeah, I've seen a couple deaths, but it's just mainly just the lack of players on hardcore.
So my strategy is, because I'm heart rich, but once I dip to like 40, I start to get greedy. But I will go, and if an altar isn't activated, I will activate it and see if people come. I'll do one wave. If nobody shows up, I'm not. It's kind of. It feels like gambling, right? This machine's not hot. I'm gonna walk away, and I don't gamble. I just know terminology. So I will then go to the other altar and try that. And normally I can get people to show up. But every single day that I have been in a Helltide, I've seen at least one person die. Now it's not every it's
Wow.
not every time, but every day at some point, if I'm in a Helltide, I will see somebody die. Uh, and guys, I love it. It is
Yeah.
it is it's exciting to have to pay attention. And you can steamroll it, but there's still a few surprises in there when that thing goes off, especially in the early levels. Um, you can find yourself getting one shot. I've died in a Helltide a few times, so I'm not above it. Sometimes that person that died that day is me. Most of the time, it's not.
Yeah, I think that's one of the best parts about season 4 is just the fact that you have to pay attention to everything now. Just for an example, I think I woke up pretty early this morning and I was just kind of casually farming. I think it was a tier 91 pit. I was almost finished up upgrading my gear completely, and I hate grinding. Okay, I hate grinding. I love challenge, hate grinding, and I'm just cruising on autopilot, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, mind you, haven't even came close to dying. I get locked in place, and at that very split second, a massive volley of spiders shooting webs at me. At the same time, I get locked for that split second. Basically, it wasn't a one shot, but it was like a very fast, and it was to 0. right? And you have to stay on your toes. In obviously, like in tier 91 pit, what was I thinking, right? But it's like, sometimes you just kind of go on autopilot. It's that pit, man. I'm gonna tell you what.
You're braver than I. I'm not touching that high of a pit in hardcore, so respect to you.
Um, I I will play while I run, and I've locked into the best build right now. It is a Thorns Barbarian,
Oh yeah.
and if I disconnect, if I fall off the treadmill, which has not happened, but it could, uh, I'm gonna be just standing there, totally living my life, and I think I'll
Yeah.
be
No.
okay because I have found, because I've had about two real, like, legitimate disconnects, and the scroll of escape has not seemed to have worked uh, in both instances. So I need something that's going to work in case that doesn't. So Thorns Barb it is. Okay, but we have gotten a little off course here though. Nico, you brought it up about the infernal hordes before. You had said it's not as exciting, and I would concur. I did some infernal hoarding, and it's on paper it works. It's a
Mhm.
great concept. The execution of it, I think, with the time that they have, can be fine tuned to be serviceable. Um, I I went through a few times. The boon system didn't excite me very much. Like at no point was I like, yes, I finally got this one, as you would expect in a roguelike, right? Like, oh, I want this, and I'll take the downside. Nothing really screamed to me. And then when I got to choose my rewards at the end, it didn't feel as rewarding either. Hopefully this gets tuned. I think a little bit of season 3, where vaults were kind of crummy, and then 2 weeks later that I couldn't get myself out of them. I'm hoping that's the case with Infernal Hordes. But what was your experience with them?
Yeah, so it's pretty much the same experience, and I, like you, believe that they can, tune it up because, I mean, really, the framework is there, right? They just have to spice it up a little bit. So the Boon and Bane, absolutely not impactful enough, right? You get this Boon, doesn't really feel like much of anything for your character. The Bane isn't really that big of a deal either, and when you finish it all, and the problem is too, is that you're spending quite a bit of time doing this infernal horde mode. Like, you can't speed it up by killing enemies faster. You have to basically go through the timer, and then every time you upgrade your compass, you spend more time because there are more waves, right? So I think I remember Rob saying he did a tier 8 level 200, and it was really difficult, and even him using a barbarian, it was pretty difficult, but it took him like, I'm not sure exactly how much, but I think he said somewhere around 40 minutes. And then he goes to open up all of his rewards, and it's like 3 greater, affix legendary items. It's nothing, right? He could have made that super easy anywhere else. So I think the overall way that the Infernal Horde mode works is perfectly fine. I'm perfectly fine with sitting in a one room and doing this entire event, right? But they definitely have to make it worthwhile. And I think increasing rewards is pretty easy, not really difficult. But that Boon and Bane system definitely needs to be more impactful. It needs to be more exciting for players to engage with that. It is the brand new in-game content, right? And it's going to be part of the seasonal mechanic that we're going to have. So it has to really be engaging and fun to, sit there for that amount of time. And obviously as rewarding as any other activity in the game. I know one of the most exciting things about it that was something that I personally like I just said, I don't like to grind. And I enjoy the pit to a certain amount, and then I'm just like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. And the fact that now we're going to get masterworking materials inside of the Infernal Horde mode means that, okay, I go to the pit, I get bored with that, I jump into an Infernal Horde, I get some more masterworking materials, I enjoy a different style of combat, and then I can just go back and forth. It gives me choice, gives me options. So I'm really excited about that. They just have to really kind of nail the execution, and that clearly was not done on the PTR. But again, it's just a PTR. So, and I do believe that I do believe in them. Like we've always said, they're very communicative. They work really hard, and they've surprised me quite a bit in season 4. And I do expect that they'll probably have some surprises in store for season 5, even though it's a shorter season.
Yeah, Xanth, you literally said word for word what I was going to say. On paper is a great concept. When they showed it in the stream, I was super excited, right? Like I'm like, "Ooh, this looks fun." But seeing the frustrations of the players and especially the Boon and Bane system where it's like what's the one it has like movement speed. You're
Yeah,
not really going anywhere, right? You're in this circle. There's nowhere to go. It's like that one can be but those are things that can be tweaked, right? They can be tweaked to, all right, let's do a different one. Or the reward system, just like the vault, right? That was tweaked immediately. And then it became, oh, this is nice. I'm gonna run for me in that season, ever since they tweaked it, I ran the vaults. I didn't even run Nightmare Dungeons. I just did vaults constantly because of the efficiency, right? So I do think they're going to be able to tweak these things, and they're going to take this feedback because on paper it is a really cool system. I'm very excited to just kind of be in that little realm of hatred and take on wave after wave, but it's got to be rewarded, right? And they've been really doing well rewarding the player with hell tides, with these things, with even a simple thing like the shrine now, the greed shrine, right?
yeah.
Where it used to be kind of pointless, and now you get to the end, and when it expires, just a load of gold just drops on you, right? So I think they're really going to they're going to tweak those things, and I think it's going to be something where it might not be perfect day one, but maybe a couple of weeks into season 5, then you're going to kind of see the fruits of their labor. It's like, okay, now I understand everything they were trying to do. It took a little bit to get there, but now we're able to do it. And I think one of the perks of this, I don't think we mentioned yet, and I think it's really cool because I just finished playing Diablo 2 for the very first time, a few months ago, bringing the console back,
Yeah.
those enemies. I think that's the coolest thing. Like anytime games do that and like almost like resurrect these like almost iconic type of either characters or villains, that stuff right there, it's just like it connects the whole franchise together and brings the nostalgia back for especially for the people who were there day one with Diablo 2, and now you're bringing into Diablo 4 with the fidelity and everything. And I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought that was really cool, and I'm really excited to kind of to fight those guys.
Yeah, I think there's a logical transition between this season and the expansion, right? As we're
Oh, yeah.
getting the council to come back, and obviously, I would imagine Mephisto's return. We don't know, but there's some logic there. Um, yeah, so it is. It's always nice to see old friends again, isn't it? Um, let's talk classes. So some classes got to shake it out a little bit on the PTR and see what works. There are notably bugs. There are bugs in which you had druids doing quadrillions of damage or trillions, and hopefully those are sorted out. Most of the time, druid ones do get sorted out.
And then Nerf.
Right.
Like,
They will be okay. But the patch notes and the PTR did call into question some things about certain classes. The one class we don't need to talk about is Barbarian. Barbarian is doing very well. However, let's talk Druid. Nico, I know you were testing Druid extensively. What did you find?
so, you know, the again, the issue is one of the best builds I think that is going to be in season 5 is the companion build. Now, obviously, the Poison Creeper was bugged, so you couldn't really do a lot of testing with that. However, I think the most accurate version is being like just hitting a single target, and it still feels like Wolves companion builds are going to be amazing, right? You're getting one aspect that gives you that chance to summon more wolves. And then you have another defensive aspect that we're getting in season 5 that's going to make your wolves invulnerable, and it does damage sharing. So you get a nice damage reduction from that aspect. So wolves are going to be really good, right? They're getting the shepherd's damage, which is 180 on a 2-hand. It's like 180 multiplicative damage that you're going to be getting to your companion skills. Then, you summon more wolves with lucky hits. You have up to 6. That's even more damage. And then they're invulnerable. And if anybody's ever played companions, you know how stupid wolves are. So that's always a bonus. Now they're not going to die. Obviously, everybody's flavor of the month is Landslide. It's seen probably the largest rework to the skill, and I think the way they did it was really smart, right? And it's something that I've been saying about Landslide. It was too small, hit a too small of an area, and there would even be times where it seemed like your landslides would just miss targets that may be floating up in the air or maybe smaller targets. And they added more landslide pillars, and they increased the area that it hit. And, obviously now Landslide is being a better build for Druid here now that we've gotten into Season 4 and people have tried things out. So that's going to be getting even better. Shred obviously was, I watched Rax's video on Shred because I'm always interested to see other people's opinions. It seems like werewolf skills in general just need a massive buff. Like Shred is going to be very lackluster if it stays the way it is. And I think one of the biggest issues is the fact that with them capping the Thunderstruck node on the Druid, which they capped all of the nodes across the board, which I think is it was a good decision to make. The problem is when you live in a meta with a class like Barbarian, and I love the fact that players have a good time on Barbarian. It's just that when you live in a meta with a class like that, when you take away the Shepherd's aspect, and then they did go ahead and buff core skills, and for some reason they missed like Boulder and Trample, but they buffed core skills and some Wrath skills. But then they capped the Thunderstruck node. It's like a double hit to any Storm skill, right? So Lightning Storm, Tornado, any kind of Stormclaw build that people love to make on the Druid, it just feels like it's going to take such a massive hit. And furthermore, the problem is, again, I could probably go on a tangent with this one, but the problem with Storm skills too tends to be the fact that the aspects for Storm skills are not really that good, and all of the Earth skill aspects for the Druid are really great. So with them buffing like Pulverized Druid and Landslide Druid, they had great aspects to go along with that. So those builds are seeing massive changes, right? Maybe not to the way that they function, but to their overall feel and quality of play, you're going to have a way better time. But like for instance, Storm skills. So if you play a Tornado build, you use Storm Chasers. Well, what do Storm Chasers do? It just makes sure tornadoes hit the target, which in my opinion is a silly way to design a skill, right? Why would you not design a skill to hit something? Doesn't make any sense. But that's all you have. Lightning Storm, Lightning Dancer. It's nice for AoE damage, but it does nothing for single target. Now, one cool thing I did see in the patch notes, and I don't know why they're calling it a bug fix. I guess it's been a bug all along, but they're making it where attack speed now scales your channeling abilities. So Whirlwind Barbs look insanely fun. And I did get to test out Lightning Storm Druid, and I'm going to tell you, it looked crazy. My man looked like he was having a seizure. He's just zapping like crazy. Tons of Lightning Storm going all over the place. It looks really cool. And I think it's a really great way to buff the skill, although they're calling it a bug fix. It's crazy. I thought that's how channeling skills worked. But it's a great way to buff the skill and add a lot of damage output without necessarily affecting the overall numbers of the skill, right? But I think my overall issue going into Season 5 has more to do with the general unique items, and not necessarily the class specific, but the general unique items like we were talking about the Shard of Veloreth that I couldn't find, or the helmet it's just like Lucian's helmet or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like insane. Or Lokren's Talisman. Crazy damage multipliers, insane amount of crit chance on that talisman, tons of crit damage on the talisman, insane damage multipliers on the helmet, insane damage multipliers on the sword. It's like, I thought that's not what we wanted to do, right? With Tebow's Will, they were like, we don't want to create an item that everybody has to use because, I mean, Jesus, it's the best. Well, that's basically what all these uniques do. So, and that's just more generally speaking. So it's going to be the same for the Druid. It's going to be the same for the Sork. It's going to be the same for the Rogue. It's like, how can you pass up on these items? But overall, definitely Druid is going to be in a better spot just because you won't have shepherds and companions polluting your bar. And when you do use shepherds, you're going to be happy because it's actually going to make your companions better. But I am a little bit worried about these unique items. So that, I guess that's my overall take. Excited to try out the Druid, but a little bit scared that every single build is going to be just those unique items.
That makes me excited and cautious about the Druid. Druid is one class that I hold dear because that was my very first class in Diablo 4, and I didn't do it justice, and I only got to like level 77, and I put it down and moved on. So I rectified that this season. Did the Druid, got him to 100. Ran a shred build, which I knew wasn't the most powerful, but I actually had quite a bit of fun. It's actually what I did run my very first one, but then once the season one kind of fix came out, it just completely wrecked it. And I'm
Yeah.
just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna leave him there now. So hearing, especially with the companion apps and the wolves, not companion apps, companions, um, hearing the wolves kind of have a little bit more oomph into it, right? Like
Oh,
there's always it's that I'm excited about, just that right there.
it's a lot more. I mean, it's a quite a, if things stay the way they are, it's a lot more. And on top of that, you're going to be a lot more tanky too. They've added a lot of damage reduction to some of your passives, and now your Earthen Bulwark scales off of your max life, which I think was just an oversight because most of the barriers on other classes scaled off their max life. Obviously, in Season 4, you can build tens of thousands of HP. So now that we actually have a functioning defensive barrier like that, I think you're going to have a way better time playing the Druid, especially if you enjoy hardcore. You're not just going to have to, debilitating roar spam. You're going to be able to use other aspects. And then also, you're going to have more skills to use. So that's always a welcome change, in my opinion.
I
I
do
would say
wish Nerd. Oh, I
I,
wish
I would
Nerd Words was here because I would love to hear what he would have to say about the Sork. Seeing a
uh
lot of
I'm pretty sure he would say it's us and he doesn't like it.
yeah,
Or he's disappointed. He's still going to play now I'm going to put on my no words impression. I'm still going to play the crap out of it. I
yeah, yeah.
but
Spot on right there.
I'm done. Uh yeah, let's talk about Sork in a second. I will say coming back to Druid, I did get to play a little bit with companions. My biggest complaint, and it's something that even the developers stated back like in the call to carpet fireside chat that they had where they were all depressed, is they understand people want a companion druid. They just don't know how to implement it yet. And this is like it's like a half measure because you're right, Nico. Those wolves are they can hit, but you can't control them in any manner.
No.
And
They,
that for like a companion build kind of sucks because it's like, okay, I'm building to do this. I'm gonna put as much energy as I can into making this work. And all my companion skills are on this part of the tree. And that's it. I don't get to even build towards anything else. And yes, there are Paragon nodes, but there's nothing else to do that's going to make this better. I don't have a bear companion. I need a bear companion
you
to
got
make
to
a
have a
companion,
grizzly bear, bro.
right? Like I need that. Or
Me-
push things around a little bit. Make ravens a basic skill. Let me spam ravens.
You throw a bird at
Legitimately,
them, just throwing birds.
right? Just summoning birds left and right. Um, but like that would make companions actually feel like it's a build because it's then built into the tree as opposed to just this one stopping point. And I think that hit the build a little bit. But we'll see. Who knows what the expansion might bring, or how skills and paragons could kind of evolve from there. In terms of other classes, As I said, I mainly played Druid for a small amount of time. But I've been keeping up with a lot of other things and watching, and I have seen some of the discontent. Druids are complaining, sorcerers are complaining, necros are complaining. Rogues and barbarians seem overall content. Do they
Yeah,
have their
rogues.
complaints? Right. But both of them seem to be okay.
Yeah, rogues look pretty good. They definitely seen, I think, the most out of the patch in terms of like overall reworking how some of their skills and passes function. I think my overall thing is, it's trying to find like that middle ground where you don't want to destroy the barbarian class. It is a fun class. It's one of the best, the most exciting classes. A lot of players love the barbarian class, and I don't want to see a class like I don't want to see those players unhappy, right? But also you have to compare the damage out, like the overall raw power of the barbarian to how the game actually works, right? Like barbarians going in there and killing a 4-man tormented boss solo in seconds with like just about any build. And I find that just thinking about how like a developer, I'm not a developer, but I couldn't imagine trying to create content where you're trying to give those players an exciting time while also giving other players an exciting time as well. So I feel like there's going to be there has to be eventually some kind of balance where maybe we do bring that class down a little bit and then bring others up to that bar. And I think they're starting to do that. They clearly made, Mini Necro better. They've clearly been working on Rogue for season 5, and I'm gonna hold like a strong opinion on it until I see the official patch notes, because just the change with the shepherds and all the buffs that they gave to the skills, I think it felt pretty good. And if they just do a little bit more tweaking with the numbers, you know, I'll be okay with that. I'll be happy with that going into the expansion, and then maybe I won't feel so bad when I try out that brand new class coming to the game. You know what I'm saying? I want to feel a little bit bad when I leave my druid behind. I don't want to be like, yes, freedom. It's not how I want to feel. So
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think you bring up a good point. The class balance is always going to be tough, and we were talking a little bit pre-show. The problem with Diablo 4 currently, and it kind of goes back to like what the goal of it was, is the numbers are steering well past what Diablo 3 would do, where we are seeing billions of damage. And for some classes, that output is significantly easier to get to. And if that's the goal, then every class needs to be like it's like this dual conversation. Should every class be as powerful as the Druid and be doing billions of damage? If the answer is no, then the question is how do we take everything down, right? And I would prefer a game in which the numbers are lower. I think billions of damage, just from like a fantasy standpoint, I can do billions of damage, or even millions seems like a lot. That just seems too high. Too high for what my normal non-god character can do. Let's bring those down. Let's bring everybody down a little bit. And I think the barbarian is still that enigma. I think how do you do that? How do you do that with so many weapon slots? How do you do that with so many aspects and skills? And it's a very well-designed class. I think maybe that's part of the problem, is it has so many ways to be powerful that you can take one away and there's still 5 more other problems. So I don't know. But good luck to you, Blizzard, because
yeah,
it's the best I got. Um,
it's
um,
the barbarian fix isn't going to be like an overnight fix, right? And I think this was we were talking about in the last podcast a few episodes back, where they could possibly be holding on to something for Vessel of Hatred, to
oh
where
yeah,
then it really kind of makes all the classes a little bit more balanced. It's like we've been talking about barbarian for quite a while now, right? But there's so many different things they have to look at when it comes to balancing that class, to balancing the other classes, to not all of a sudden making those barbarian players unhappy immediately. Like we saw what happened with that fake patch note that came out where they were right, like within 10 minutes internet went wild, right? It's like that they don't want that. So how can you do this over time, not just do it overnight of like, all right, all of a sudden barbarians nerfed and maybe we bring on some other classes down and then that's that's what you wanted, right? And that's not going to work out. So it's something that's going to take its time, and I think we're going to see some of that action. I'm guessing in Vessel of Hatred, or maybe even slightly beyond that. But like you said, Zan, I think it's just too well designed. The barbarian, it's too unique compared to the other ones with all those weapon slots.
Yeah. Again, I enjoy the class. It is fun. I like the thought of having these multiple avenues, as I was sharing before. Like, I would like to be able to do a Thorns Druid and have it
Yeah.
be effective. I would like to be able to do a Thorns Sorcerer. I would like that. I think the Barbarian has like so many of those different kind of cool options. Like, I want to make a Barbarian that has 500,000 health. Oh, you can do that. I want to make a barbarian that will kill everything when it hits it. Oh, you can do that. I want to make a barbarian that does a bunch of damage. Oh, you can do that. Problem is, some of those builds can do all of that at the same time.
Yeah.
And I think the barbarian, again, well designed, just has it's got too much going for it. It needs that trade off somewhere along the way. Uh, and by comparison, like when I play Druid, like I want to make just a straight werewolf build. No, not gonna happen because you're gonna need to do X, Y, and Z. Or I want to do um, even just a storm build. Yeah, but your storm build would be maybe more effective if you were also a werewolf. Like
Yeah.
that doesn't feel right. Uh, Now we're just going into tangents. We're going into complaints. Let's get hyped. Let's shift a little bit. Let's get hyped. We got a new class coming, guys. And if we're talking about overpowered barbarians, I think the new class is going to be way more overpowered just because it's going to be new. Um, we are 2 weeks out. Oh, so it is the third Leviathan. It is July 3rd. Uh, so we're about 2 weeks away from getting a good look at this new class. Next week, a bunch of content creators are going out to Irvine. They're going to play the Spiritborn, and then they're going to come back and talk all about it when they can. And then on the 18th, we're going to get a reveal. What that entails, I don't know, but I would expect show off the class, show off the skills. We'll probably even get a Blizzard webpage with, I would hope, all the skills and paragons and stuff like that for us to dig into. And then there's a bunch of other content creators that are going to be streaming their playthrough. Friend of the podcast, Macrobio Boy, going to be streaming live from Blizzard. Or he will be in Seattle. I believe they're in Seattle, streaming from there. So it sounds pretty awesome. What is your level of hype to learn about this new class?
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. It looks like a high mobility class. I mean, just by looking at it, it's got like some kind of panther helmet, right? It just says it moves quickly to me. And then I think it's going to be obviously overpowered, right? That's the history of any game introducing a brand new class in an expansion. They typically come in hot and then they get nerfed really hard later on, and then they just bring them back up. But yeah, I mean, it looks great aesthetically. It looks great. Obviously, we still have to see all the skills and how it functions. But like I said, looks like a high mobility class, and anytime you have a class that has a lot of mobility, as long as they can do damage on top of that, which I most likely would bet that this class will be able to do that damage, I think players are going to have a lot of fun playing that class. I mean, it just looks good, even from the screenshots that we have of it. You know, it just looks really cool, and it fits the theme. And we already have the mounts, right? We got the brand new mount they gave us for pre-ordering the expansion, so that fits into the theme, right? The cosmetics as well. So it looks pretty cool. Definitely pretty excited to try it out. And like I said, I do want to feel a little bit bad when I leave my Druid, but I'm definitely going to try out that brand new class.
Yeah, I'm super excited to try this out. Just like everyone else, we're all going to be Spiritborn day one in Vessel of Hatred, right? You're not going to see any other class out there. I think one, yeah, the aesthetic is super cool. I think it's almost going to be like like a hybrid of a druid, sort of, where it's going to be a more mobile druid, but there could potentially be some animal companions with it. Um, and this is just all purely speculating, right? Like, I think it's going to be like a druid slash rogue, and kind of in between. I know a lot of people are comparing it to the witch doctor, obviously, right? I don't think, and there we could see some things kind of similarities with that, but I'm very excited to see what they bring to us. July 18th, I'm really just excited to see everything, and to get a hands on it. That's where we're really going to feel it, right? It's going to what are the new Paragon boards with this? What are the skills? How many different types of builds are there that are viable for us to use with Spiritborn? So yeah, I'm super pumped for it. I can't wait for Vessel of Hatred. October can't come fast enough. But I'm actually little quick story. I have a work thing on that day, and I had scheduled before that, and I was gonna plan to take off, and now I have that, and I'm like, damn it. So now I've got to get that, workday thing done those 2 days, and then I can be able to jump in, and then I'm gonna maybe take like a day or two off, like Monday and Tuesday. Um, got important things to do, right? Just so I can tell everyone. And so yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait, man. I'm so excited. I already pre-ordered it. I've got the cat mount, and I'm using the new green portal so everyone can see that I have the green portal because it's very vibrant.
It
So
is
I love
vibrant.
it.
They didn't play around about it, man. They said this is the brand new portal. You guys are gonna want this thing.
Yeah.
In keeping with speculation around the class, and the look, uh, I'm thinking monk-esque, and then being my dream is an amalgamation of monk and witch doctor, which were my two most played classes um, in Diablo 3. That would be dangerous for me because again, that would steer me away from the druid, which I desperately want to still play. But that might hit like a very sweet spot. Now, if it's anything like an Amazon and I can throw a javelin, that's also would be a big win for me because I love that as well. So any of those things, totally fine. I'm very curious to see what it actually entails. And again, shout out to Leviathan. He's been working on it. I'm so stoked that he gets to show off his work to the world, and we get to kind of actually see what this class entails. The first new Diablo class
Yeah,
in 12 years.
yeah,
Like,
a long time.
yeah, because the Crusader would be the newest class brought to the Diablo universe.
Not
Unless you
counting
count,
unless you count the Immortal, right?
yeah, unless you count, unless you count it.
Mainstream canonical classes. Immortal's
Unless
that
you,
weird one. And we are a Diablo podcast, and I will say, like, the Tempest looked really cool. The Blood Knight looks really cool. I
Blood
think it's
Knight
Blood
is
Knight.
actually really cool. That's the one I run in Immortal, and I really enjoy it.
Like, I don't mobile game. Like, I just never, it just doesn't work for me because I'm an old. As like, I
I
know
will tell you,
you're like Xanth. Look at that youthful hair just blowing in the wind. No, I'm old, guys. I'm old.
yeah,
So mobile gaming,
I
not
will,
for this guy.
I will, I will tell you, I did play some Immortal, and when it first came out, and there were a lot of good systems in that game. Like people really wanted to not like that game just because obviously of the mobile concept and the cash shop and everything. But I will say that when they made that game, there are a lot of really cool systems that you can engage with inside of that game, and I think they could even adapt some of those and bring them into D4, like the clan system, the raids, and there's just so many little things that they could bring over. And I think it would really kind of help build out a lot of what people are asking for in D4, which is like the social systems, right? We want matchmaking, we want a group finder, we want all these things that currently exist. And I think that's the beautiful thing about Diablo 4 is it has so many things it can pull from. Like Diablo 3 is so different than Diablo 2 is so different than Diablo 1, and Diablo Immortals is a thing of its own. And because they're all so different, they each have something unique and enjoyable about each one of those things. And if they could start just pulling stuff, man, I was talking with some of my chat today in my stream, and they're like, cow level. Everybody wants a cow level or a goblin queen level. Like, it's like everybody wants these things from games that, they built memories with. So, but yeah, going back to that class, I love the way you guys describe it. I love the idea that it would be a rogue druid or some kind of monk witch doctor hybrid. But I will say that I hope we're all wrong, and I hope these guys bring us something that is completely unique and just blows our minds. Like, just throws us completely in a different direction than what we would have expected. Because I know that that's probably something that's incredibly hard to do with all of, I mean, geez, it's a saturated genre anyway. There's tons of games to come before it and after it, and if they can really nail something that's super unique, that really brings some excitement to a large portion of the Diablo community, it's going to be pretty awesome.
Absolutely. So we will obviously be tuning in on the 18th to see what they got up their sleeves. Before we go, gentlemen, there are two things that I've been really thinking about as of late. It being the third, we've got about a month left of this season, which doesn't feel right because typically what happens with a month to go is I'm like maybe getting towards being burned out. That is not the case. I'm very sad that the season is going to end, but also super excited for the seasons to come. Um, we got about a month left, and then we're going to go into a 2-month season, and then we get the expansion. It is a great time to be a Diablo fan. With this month that we have left, and what is a solid season 4, what's on your bucket list? What do you hope to do yet?
Yeah, I have to learn Rogue. I've been promising I was going to learn Rogue. I've been saying it forever. I have a rogue made at level 60. I should have leveled them up during the XP event. I did not, but I have to learn rogue. I've been saying that for a minute now. I wanted to do barbarian, but I just cannot play something that's that strong for me. Like, I have to have a little bit of give and take. So I really want to learn rogue. A lot of changes coming to rogue. I probably won't be able to learn all of the finer aspects of the class, but I feel like I can get a pretty good handle on it before the season. And then whenever the max roll leaderboards open up for the end season, I will be pushing for the hardcore pit level, whatever I can get to, see if I can possibly maybe top out on the board, maybe top 5. I'm going to shoot for the number 1 position, obviously, but like I said, I cannot grind for the life of me, and I am not going to get billions of gold to reset my items to double crit damage to distant enemies. It's not going to happen. I won't do it. But yeah, that's my plan. Learn Rogue, do the max roll leaderboard, and then I will probably do some Elden Ring. I'll probably do some Elden Ring after that. But yeah, that's it. That's me. That's going to be for the season.
Nice. Yeah, I'm just like you, Zan. I'm just Diablo 4 is the only game I play at this point. Like, I have not gotten tired of the season. I've got a level 100 Necro, level 100 Druid, level 100 Hardcore Barbarian, and now I'm working on a Rogue that's at level 73, I believe. So the Rogue will be my final class to hit 100. So then I'll have all classes I've hit 100. And what's been fun about this is I only played Rogue one time in Diablo 4, and I played it on hardcore to get to level 50 to get the trophy. I'm a trophy hunter for PlayStation, and I had to go and get the platinum for Diablo 4. And I always make sure that every podcast or every stream that I do for work, I say I had the Diablo 4 platinum, so everyone knows that I have it. And it took a lot of work to do it. So but I also have 100 100% of the achievements on Xbox for Diablo 4. So there we
Nice.
go.
Aha, there it is.
I had to do that too. I have a problem. So anyway, we're playing. So what's been fun about Rogue is, like I said, I had my hardcore Rogue, got up to level 52. I beat the story, and I'm like, okay, that's okay. I'm done with that Rogue. Didn't pick it up till now. And I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm running like a rapid fire build, which I don't know the meta of Rogue whatsoever. I'm just kind of just like, this is great. I'm having so much fun. I was able to craft Tyrell's Might because I had 4 resplendent sparks.
Nice.
So with the rapid fire and the holy damage that's coming out, the holy barrage that's coming out, it's just like damage everywhere. But I'm running my friend who's never played a Diablo game before, who's never played an ARPG game before, and we're playing together, and I'm saving that character just for the times that me and him are syncing up. And it's been fun just kind of introducing someone brand new to Diablo, and now I've got him obsessed, and he hates me a little bit because now this is the only game he plays. Sorry, not sorry, Greg. Shout out to you. But it's been so much fun just introducing someone else to this world when I was just a brand new Diablo player last year when this game launched. Like Diablo 4, Nico, if you don't know, Diablo 4 was my very first Diablo experience, my very first ARPG. So I had to do a lot of learning and figuring out the systems, figuring out mechanics, figuring out what Diablo is. And then, of course, I went down this road of never looking back, and I've got every freaking book there is, and I'm reading, and I got Diablo. I wear so many Diablo shirts, and people at my studio think I work for Blizzard. It's a whole thing. So so my bucket list, in conclusion to that whole tangent, is I want to get my Rogue to level 100 before season 5, which I definitely going to hit. That's really it. Once I hit that, I'm ready to go into season 5. Give it a go, see how far I'm gonna go with it. I really just want to be fresh and prepared for Vessel of Hatred. I'm excited for the little type of quest line that seems to lead into Vessel of Hatred. I really love the lore of Diablo, and I'm a very kind of story person, so I actually do sit there and listen to all the side quests and listen to the books that you pick up and stuff. So, yeah. So that's Rogue to 100 is conclusion.
Nice.
Well, I hope both of you achieve your goals. My white whale at the moment is going to be Uber Lilith on hardcore. Um, I
Brave soul.
don't have the platinum for PlayStation because of that achievement, and I refuse to make a softcore character. So I will take a stab at it eventually, and we'll see what happens. I will probably die. That's okay. Because I've been fine without it, but every season I'll give her a go, and eventually I'm gonna get it. Uh, but yeah, that's all that really remains. And even if I die, I'll keep tossing more characters her way, and we will see what happens. Uh, Gentlemen, this has been a delight, and thank you both for filling in on short notice. The way this works for the listeners is normally Nine Ball and Nerd Boards are just available, uh, and then when they're not, people start getting messages like 3 or 4 hours before the podcast is going to happen. And both of you guys were gracious enough to agree. So thank you again for joining me. And let's close it out as we always do with a moo, moo, moo.
Moo, moo, moo.
Moo moo.